fellow Vincentians and residents. Tomorrow, Thursday, November the 5th, we go to the polls in our 10th general elections since independence in 1979. I am the only person who has participated in all 10 elections as a candidate. In the process, I have bridged the eras of three political titans of modern St. Vincent and the Grenadines: Ebenezer Joshua, Milton Cato, and James Mitchell. And I emerged to lead our nation in the first 20 years of the 21st century thus far. I am thus a creation of the years of tumultuous change in the second half of the 20th century and the first 2 decades of the 21st century. As such, I know the times, and I have led our nation accordingly and appropriately for change and transformation in the people's interests. For over 50 years, and especially in the last 41 years since our nation's independence, I have devoted myself faithfully to serving our nation and our Caribbean. Serving you with God's blessings and guidance has been my life's work, but my work is not yet done. There is much more for me still to do, and I ask you humbly not to let me leave behind any unfinished task. Thus I request of you to re-elect the Unity Labour Party government under my leadership for a 5th consecutive term to deepen and broaden further, in the people's interest, the economic and social transformation of our country, which commenced nearly 20 years ago. For nearly 240 years hitherto, from the inception of British colonization in 1763 to the sunset years of the 20th century, the economy and society were dominated by a single agricultural crop in succession: sugar, cotton, arrowroot, and bananas, supported by subsidies at home or market preferences in Britain, and underpinned by unlimited supplies of cheap labor. Modern globalization and trade liberalization abroad and social democratic advances locally undermined and exhausted this limited and limiting economic model of a single crop dominance, which had the people at a relatively low level of material life and living. The economy and society were at a veritable dead end before the ULP's election to office in 2001. Not only was the old economic model exhausted, so too the new Democratic Party, which ran the country for 17 years. It was tired, bereft of ideas, and was on a journey to nowhere. After 20 years of opposition, the NDP is yet to get its act together and is wholly unprepared in every material particular for governance. It is still on a journey to nowhere. The NDP is still without any credible ideas. It has no compelling developmental narrative. It is weak in structure, cobbled together as a makeshift aggregation of personally ambitious electoral elites without a core philosophical outlook or uplifting plan. A disunited outfit under a weak leader. Upon arrival in government at the end of March 2001, the ULP swiftly got down to the business of cleaning up the considerable mess left by the NDP, and at the same time charting a transformational path for our nation in the people's interest. The ULP's people-centered vision, its social democratic philosophy, its uplifting drive to enable further the magnificent Vincentian component of our Caribbean civilization, and its compelling transformational policies and programs grounded in the people's interests, have remade and are remaking our country better by far. We must now go further and lift St. Vincent and the Grenadines even higher. Central to the ULP's compelling and transformational narrative of sustainable development has been its ongoing quest to build a modern, competitive, many-sided, post-colonial economy which is at once national, regional, and global. Each of these words is pregnant with real meaning. In order to effect an orderly, democratic, and peaceful transformation of the country, of the economy, of the society, a bundle of initiatives were required to be undertaken, including the education revolution, poverty reduction, job creation, the building of the Canouan Jet Airport and the International Airport at Argyle, the construction of the bridge over the Rabuka Dry River, the rollout of advanced competitive systems in information communications technology, the massive build-out in water, sanitation, and electricity services, the carrying out of the health and wellness revolution, the rollout of the housing revolution, the expansion and strengthening of the social safety net, the prioritizing of adaptation and mitigation measures to combat the ravages of climate change, the strengthening of the state apparatuses to uplift citizen security, the enhancing markedly of developments in sports and culture, and the emphasizing of a mature regionalism and an efficacious foreign policy as instruments to facilitate sustainable development. All these initiatives and more have indeed transformed our country and lifted hugely the quality of our people's lives sustainably. I reiterate that we in the ULP are now seeking a fifth term to deepen and broaden further economic and social transformation in our people's interests. This transformative process is ongoing, and it is lifting higher the extent and quality of our lives, living, and production. The big ticket items for the ULP's further transformation of the economy and society over the next 5 years, on which implementation has already commenced, include: 1, the construction or imminent construction of over $1 billion in investments in hotels, such as Black Sands at Peters Hope, the Marriott at Mount Wynn, Sandals Beaches at Bookament, Royal Mill at Rathamil, Holiday Inn Express at Diamond, and Soho House in Canouan. Additionally, local entrepreneurs are building smaller hotels, guest houses, and apartments, and expanding their existing hotel plans. Together, over 2,000 construction jobs on these hotels, and over 3,000 jobs when the hotels become operational are in the offing. These are real sustainable jobs, real development. Further recently, a group of investors headed by a Barbadian purchased Petit Moustique to establish a resort of international quality. Their plan is to invest US $500 million over a 12-year period. More sustainable jobs are in the offing here also. 2, the construction of a US $200 million modern port at the Bottomtown Rose Place area. The bulk of funding comes from a grant from the British government and a soft loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. This is the largest loan ever made by the CDB in its 50-year history. More jobs, more transformation, more sustainable development. Rose Place will be transformed too for the better. This project has commenced. This project complements the Argyle International Airport. 3, the construction of roads, bridges, river and city fences, buildings, including the state-of-the-art Louis Burnett Home for the elderly at Fair Hall, the modern parliament and the Hall of Justice. We do those over the next 5 years at a cost of over $400 million. All of these projects, public sector projects, more jobs, more sustainable development. These are not pie in the sky. They are real, they're at hand. 4, the construction of the modern state-of-the-art acute referral hospital at Gonsalves at a cost of approximately US $55 million. All the detailed plans are in place for its construction. More jobs, more sustainable development. The residents of Pole Yard will receive new houses at no cost to them. 5, the rollout of the plans to build out the modern city at Gonsalves. The process has started. It will intensify over the next 5 years. A central theme of the city is health and wellness. We will carefully build out a splendid city, not a quick grab ramshackle eyesore. More jobs, more sustainable development. 6, the full fruition of the medical cannabis industry in accordance with the most sensibly crafted legislative and institutional framework to comply with the requisites of international law and our own circumstances. More jobs, more sustainable development. 7, the rollout further of low-income and middle-income housing, including for young professionals. More jobs, more sustainable development. 8, the further expansion of the agricultural, animal husbandry, poultry, fisheries, manufacturing, ICT, electricity, water, sea, road and air transportation, professional services sectors and other sectors or subsectors, including call centers. In fact, the call center Clare Harbor currently employs 250 persons. In another year's time, it would be in excess of 500 persons. In all of these areas, more jobs, more sustainable development. 9, the further deepening and broadening of the education revolution in every single respect. The health and wellness revolution, poverty reduction, social safety nets for the vulnerable, social security, sports and culture, and citizen security. All of these would be further deepened and broadened as part of the ongoing transformation process in our people's interest. And 10, the further enhancing of regional integration and our path-breaking foreign policy. Our historic role as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council is awe-inspiring and beneficial to SVG. Those of you who listened or witnessed the proceedings yesterday, as I assumed the presidency of the United Nations Security Council for the month of November, would appreciate what I'm talking about here. And as always, we will continue to uphold and promote good governance in every material respect and to lift higher the soul and spirit of our nation. Contrast all this with the offerings of the NDP, which focus on selling our passports and citizenship, our sacraments of nationhood, selling out our country to passport-selling entrepreneurs from Europe and Hong Kong, forming an unholy alliance with a veritable Chinese triad of foreign mindbenders running the NDP campaign, of Chinese finance passport selling persons, and of breaking links with Taiwan and establishing ties with mainland China. And then there's the Patel Matthews Lorraine Friday proposal for planting 5 ganja trees in every household and making North Leeward a ganja-free zone, ganja-free for all zone. That's what it is, with little or no credible regulation. These NDP policies together constitute a real and present danger to our country and our people. In practical terms, these Chinese and European passport entrepreneurs will control our country and recolonize it with the support of the NDP. This proposed dangerous passport selling and citizenship selling and a ganja free for all will cause our country to be blacklisted. Correspondent banking relations will be ruptured. People will not get their money through Western Union and MoneyGram. The visa-free regime for our nationals to enter Europe will be abolished. Legitimate investments will dry up, and our country will become a pariah nation. A laziness of mind, a malaise of absurdity, and a hunger for power at any cost have sadly gripped the NDP. James Mitchell's great party has been reduced to practically nothing but an empty shell for ambitious politicians with their personal agendas, grounded in vanity, vainglory, and mirages masquerading as serious public policy. And the Chinese and their friends who buy our citizenship will buy up most of our land, cordon it off, and keep us out. They would effectively rule us. Beyond all this, the NDP's campaign has been stuffed with deceit, commerce, innuendos, and anti-national offerings. They must not be rewarded for their follies. It is said by some that the ULP has been in government for too long. But how long is too long when the business of transforming our nation for the better is fully underway, though incomplete, and is benefiting the people? There is also the empty mantra of time for a change. But the ULP is the change, the ongoing transformation in the people's interest. We have the policies and plans, the leadership and the team to continue the change for everyone to benefit in our blessed country. Dr. Friday asks for you to give him a chance. But the leadership of our country is not a lotto game. If Dr. Friday wants a chance, he should play set for life, not play with our country with reckless ideas, weak leadership, and a Canadian passport proudly in his front pocket, as he told us in Parliament. The ULP stands for change, not an inglorious exchange of a mess of pottage for our sacraments of nationhood, our passport, and our citizenship, as proposed by the NDP. The ULP seeks to uplift the soul, S-O-U-L, of the nation in every material particular. The NDP is bent on putting up a for sale sign in our nation's shop window. We are for the S-O-U-L, the soul of the nation. They are for the S-A-L-E, the sale of the nation. The NDP's reckless and weak leadership were evident in the early weeks and months of the COVID pandemic. The NDP and Lorraine Friday demanded repeatedly that I close the country down tight like a drum. They demanded draconian Chinese methods. That's their actual words. Demanded that draconian Chinese methods be employed. They called for a state of emergency and the suspension of people's fundamental rights and freedoms. They clamored for schools to be closed for the year and that CPA, CSEC, and CAPE examinations be postponed indefinitely. They urged a nightly curfew. They shouted vociferously for a closure of our airports and seaports. They were gripped by an unhealthy hysteria. They were acting like robotic mimic men and mimic women, devoid of reason and understanding of facts, science, the relevant law, or our own condition. Meanwhile, our government maintained the patience and a calm. We took appropriate measures. The NDP screamed that by May 2020, over 50,000 Vincentians would be dead. But no one died. And no one has been even hospitalized with COVID in our country. And the few COVID cases of individuals in St. Vincent itself, these arose from infections by one or two persons who came in, who acted irresponsibly, who came in from overseas and acted irresponsibly. And we contained those cases properly and effectively. In terms of protecting lives and livelihoods, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has had a stellar performance on handling COVID. Leadership matters. Leadership counts for much. Leadership is vital. Strangely, the NDP asks the people to vote out Ralph and the ULP despite our successes. And on this, the NDP itself is confused. For example, Sir James Mitchell and the NDP have said that Ralph and the ULP handled COVID well, yet the NDP calls to vote us out. Sinclair Leacock is on record of saying that Ralph is a formidable leader with no political equal in the Caribbean, yet the NDP calls for me to be voted out. Dr. Friday himself, in an answer to a probing query from a community college student, stated that, quote, our students have done well, our people have done well, unquote. Yet he says that we must be voted out on precisely those very grounds. It is all so cockeyed. The NDP and its leadership are confused and confusing and dangerous to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Fellow Vincentians residents, this is unquestionably the last political broadcast that I am making as political leader of the ULP in a general election. I have given my life to my people and my country. I have more to give, God willing. It is your verdict to render. I have assembled a high-quality team for these general elections. The ULP is offering experienced and wise persons amidst young candidates brimful with enthusiasm and skill. Our roll call of candidates is impressive. You know them. Montgomery Daniel, Sabota Caesar, Frederick Augustus Stevenson, Jimmy Prince, Camilo, Curtis King, Luke Brown, Dominic Sutherland, Debbie Charles, Minerva Glasgow, Orlando Brewster, Carlos James, Carlos Williams, and Edwin Snag. They are under the leadership of Comrade Ralph, whom you know quite well, and who knows our people's strengths and possibilities. Above all, you know that I love you. It is a love which is a never fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. My labor team love you dearly and care for you. And we know very well that although we Vincentians are not better than anyone, no one is better than us. This belief, our belief and your belief, which we have been teaching, is a noise in our blood, an echo in our bones. It will never contemplate to allow us to be recolonized by foreigners in whatever guise they come. We in the ULP will continue to live higher all categories of persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. After all, this is what politics and government is all about. who will continue to benefit? The young and the elderly, the workers and the business people, the poor and the marginalized, the abled and the physically not handicapped but with physical disabilities, which are themselves possessed of abilities. The farmers and fisherfolk, the various groups of public employees, public servants, teachers, nurses, policemen and women, doctors, and the like. The investors and consumers, all our people have benefited thus far from the policies of the ULP government and will continue to so benefit in the transformation which is ongoing. I expect that our elections tomorrow will be peaceful. Let us be orderly and act in the finest traditions of our democracy. Do not allow any mischief maker to wean you away from voting for Labour. Me and my neighbor voting for Labour. It's 5 in a row. Defend your party. Defend your country. Defend yourself. Defend your gains. Vote Labour. I thank you, all of you, for your support thus far. I ask you for a big majority tomorrow to avoid any possible disruptions from a permanently disgruntled opposition, especially when they lose. They must not be given any space to repeat their silly political antics of the last 5 years. They should be punished at the polls for those foolish antics. I remind you, go to the polls early. The polls open at 7 o'clock. The polls close at 5 p.m. There's a half an hour for persons who receive a card to get out after their 5-day quarantine to go to vote in that last half an hour. A big turnout helps your government, helps the Unity Labour Party. Vote Labour. Vote for the Star. Good evening, and may Almighty God continue to bless us all. Thank you.
When you doing to Roger?
Don't ask me. Ask somebody upon the road and see.
But yo, we supposed to buy this shop for chill.
Man, I tell you, ask somebody upon the road, yo. Man, I inside, don't be see.
Well, so girls, we all there on Thursday, yeah?
Well, no. I can't.
Excuse me. Go take your seat. There is something very important happening on Thursday.
I gotta get my hair done.
Wait, this is something happening Thursday. Bush coming?
No. Election.
Oh, right.
Election day.
So here's what you need to know. Election day is
Thursday, November 5th.
That's correct. Polls open at
8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
no 7 a.m. Now you need to bring along
A picture ID, like a passport, or your ID, or your driver's license, one of them things, right?
yes. Picture ID. Okay, enough with the interruptions. Pay attention. This is how you mark your ballot. Look for the star. And mark your X between the lines, not touching the line. If you touch it, it's spoiled. If you spoil your ballot, ask for another one. And please make sure you're in line by 5 p.m. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Can I wear my UIB t-shirt?
No. No party shirt, no wristband, nothing political.
Wait, so I had a little interest, in selling passports and land and property to the foreigners. Who should I?
You're done?
If I had sense of God,
Just put your